welcome back to OG Reefs and Aquariums. I feel like I'm slow right now. I'm thuggish. It might be a...
You're slow.
Yeah, this might be a bad... Anyway. Disclaimer, this video seems... I just got really sluggish when I start videotaping. Anyway, so... I want to show you guys the next thing I did with the reef. Let me see if I cut this on. Let's see, is the whites... Let's see here. Alright, so this is the tank. Newer skate. Keeley's, everybody. Should do this. Okay. Keeley's and everybody doing good. Here's the quarantine tank here. They get moved over this week. But that's not what I'm showing you. What I'm showing you is I'm all over the place. What I'm showing you is that I hooked up automatic water change. Now this is my first two apex doses for magnesium, calcium, alkalinity, and acupower. Okay, so basically they get dosed, and I'm using a Trident. But because I have a heavy bio load and I'm adding additional fish, I decided to try some automatic water changes. Now, I'm only changing a half a gallon a day, right? Half a gallon a day is about 20 gallons. Let's see, half of that's 1, 2, 3, 6, 9. It's about 15 gallons a month, which is about 15%, 10% water change, okay? Now, I know what you guys are going to say. That really isn't enough to dilute any. That's not what I'm doing. I'm doing this to keep and create a harmony within the tank. See, because when you're in the ocean, remember, you got a constant in and out of fresh water. Now, what the new salt water is going to bring in, this is going to keep my trace minerals up high. It's going to help sustain my tank. It's going to keep, maybe it's going to keep my parameters closer in check. And along with this refugium here, and a very efficient skimmer, some GF, it allows me to really maintain a heavy bio load because we love fish and a healthy tank. Now, what am I saying? Let me show you guys. Everything in this tank is healthy and feed. That's because I try my best to mimic the real ocean. So anyway, water change, how's it work? Okay, well, this is it. This is my in and my out. Okay, it leads to a storage container on the balcony. I'm in an apartment. That's why I'm only doing a half a gallon. It runs along this cabling here. See this long unit here? Here, and it goes outside here. Now this is going to be for a high-low sensor that I'm going to put outside. I need to drill another hole because I want to actually run it separately. This goes outside to a 27-gallon tote, which inside has pre-mixed salt water and a heater. And this is my waste. Now, my waste is only 5 gallons. That's because what I'm going to do is it's going to help me stay on top of my maintenance. See, I just throw this out, you know, empty it when it's full. So about once a week. All right. Now, normally I like to do about a gallon a day, but I can't have big trash cans out on my balcony because the management trip. Okay, so 1 second. Here's a better view of how it's granite along the wall.
Have you asked Felicity for help?
Wall, ran to the back of the tank and to the tank. Now let me show you how the programming looks. Alright, so here's my Apex dashboard. So here's my current parameters. Alkalinity is 8.33, calcium is at 417, magnesium at 1388, temperature is 78.2, my pH is 806, salinity is 36.1. Alright, and if I click on it, let's click on alkalinity. You'll see where it tried it. Wait a second now. My average is 8.88 and I wanted 8.6, so it's pretty good. It's close in there. Average day You see there's drops. I could probably smooth it out a little bit, but that small change I'm not really worried about. Anyway, that's not what I'm talking about. We're talking about the automatic water change. So here's the automatic water change. So it's called water in and water out. As you can see, I'm doing 1,892.7 milliliters a day, which is a half a gallon. All right. So, what kind of safeties have I put in place? So I'm running two modulators, one with wet floor sensors, which is, see if I can show you, wet left, wet right, and wet center. So basically, there's 3 sensors on the tank. If anything on the left, the right, or the center senses wet water, it cuts off the tank. This is my auto top off sensor. If this sensor is detects low water, this flips to open and it cuts off my ATO. And F1 is the sensor, is a high water sensor that's in the actual sump. Now what this happens is, if this is triggered, basically if water gets to a certain height in the sump, it's going to trigger close, and once it trigger close, one second. Once it triggers close, then a lot of things happen. Like for instance, if it's closed, then the automatic water sensor changer cuts off. Basically, if it's pumping too much water in the tank, it's going to flood the house. It cuts off this, cuts off the return pump. It also sends an alarm to me. I also have a visible LED that flashes, and I'll show you guys that in a later video. So, if F1 equals closed and off, if output return pump equals off and off. So, if I ever cut the return pump off, auto water sensor cuts off. If it F1 sensor in the sump senses water at a too high of a level, it cuts off the automatic water change and the return pump. Now, reason I use return pump as my trigger, because if you go to return pump, a lot of things happen. Now, on the return pump, if the power of the apex loses power at any point, all right, then cut the return pump off. If I go into feed mode, cut the return pump off. If wet center, left or right, cut the return pump off. So basically, if I put all of my ifs and ands within the return pump, I just need to set one state in the auto top off, since if the water pump's ever off, is in fact by default going to run all of these steps. Okay, so that's the same thing as water in. Water in and water out, the same step. So as you can see here, it's basically, right now it's 5:23, and when it gets to this time, which is 6:30, actually 6:45, it's going to start a half a gallon water change. Now, this is the start time, this is the end time. Real simple. And if you go into modify, you can actually run the heads of the apex reversed, or they can run either way. So you see here, I go to modify, I got on add, because basically when you prime your dose, by default it's on add. Okay, so when I'm priming the dose, or the normal spin of the head is add, you can change this to remove. It'll spin counterclockwise, but it's easier to leave it at default and just crisscross the actual hoses. So add is actually removing. If that makes sense to you. And I can show you that by doing this. Let's run here. And maybe I'll visually alright. Zoom this over so. See, so normally in your heads are set up to both run the same way, counterclockwise, right? But when you do an auto water change, it's reversed, right? So, but the problem is when you actually prime them, they run left to right. But when you do an auto water change, the right head runs right to left. This is confusing. Okay, so what I did is I took the sump hose, right, which is so I took the water from the waste container and reversed it. Had it go on the opposite side and took the tank to the opposite side. Now they both run the same direction, but it's just pulling opposite, if that makes sense. Maybe this is better to help you. So normally when you open your dose up, both heads run left to right. So when you press this button here, water comes in here, water comes in here, out there, in here, out there. Okay? That's how regular dose. When you press these two buttons, this is the direction of the flow. Okay? Now, when you run as an auto water change, the new salt water runs the regular way in and out, but the out runs reverse. It goes out in. So for as long as I couldn't figure out why it wasn't actually changing waters. So if you go into where I just showed you, into the settings after you configure it, go into settings and tell it to add, because this is actually removed. Now both heads run the same direction. Okay, but if you follow this wiring, it's not accurate because this wiring is for reverse. So you need to take this wire and go from here to here, right? And here to here. You gotta crisscross. Once you crisscross, everything is fine. It is normal use. Then the cool thing about this is that if I ever water change, want to prime the tank, I can actually hit the prime button and new water will come in. Actually, sump water will come in and out to the waste tank the same way new water comes in and goes to the tank. We just got to reverse these two wires. That's one thing you got to remember. So if you ever set up your auto water change and this is pumping water, this gosh, it's getting confusing. This is pumping water in and this is drawing air, it's because this diagram is not correct. Go into the configuration. Let me show you that real quick here. Go into the one second. Go into the configuration of your dose. On the water out. Okay. Go into configuration. Go into the time that's set by the task. Go into modify. And then switch that action from remove to add. Now it's the same as this default. Then you go back here. Reverse these two wires. So this will now go here and this go there, and you have no problem. That's just the tip. Took me a while to figure that out. It's really not clear in the setup, because if you follow this wiring diagram, it will work, but it doesn't follow the normal setup out of the box, which is left to right. Alright, other than that, guys, auto water change is working. I'm looking for stability. Everything seems to be going great right now. Everything. Actually, I'm using, believe it or not, with a half-a-gallon water change, I'm using less alkalinity and calcium. My pH, which is, I used to require a scrubber. My average pH over the last couple of days, just take a look at that, because that's also important. See, this is when I was setting it up. Okay, let's see, the last day, I'm at a high 82. And last night, low of 7.8. I got an average of 7.99, which is an 8. I'll take that. I take it all day, guys. Never chase numbers. Just try to stay stability. Remember, stability, consistent, and be consistent at it, and efficient and reliable. Do the same things over. Consistency is the main thing. Consistency and patience is the main thing to this. All right, guys. So here it is. This is the settings. Scammer, everything's right here. Any questions? Hit me below. Hope this wasn't that confusing to you. But auto water change. That's the tank in the back. I'll leave and give you a quick look at the tank. OG Reefs and Aquariums. Please hit the like, subscribe button. Any Apex questions, hit me up. Next, I'm hooking up an LED to the tank so I get an alarm. I get an LED flash and a siren. Stick around. Peace. So that's how loud the dose is, just so you guys know when it's running, the water change. So I do close the doors, it's not as loud, but that's the water change kicking in. Alright, guys?